The voicemail light on the old landline in the hallway stayed red for 7 years before the bulb finally burnt out. It pulsed softly through the dark of the house each night, a tiny electronic heartbeat, reminding me of a conversation I wasn't brave enough to finish. I would pass it on my way to the kitchen for a glass of water, catching my reflection in the polished wood of the console table, just the outline of a man who had let the clock run out. We tell ourselves we're waiting for the right moment, for the words to settle, or the pride to soften, but most of the time we're simply waiting for time to decide for us. That small red light never felt like a demand. It felt like a witness. It watched the seasons change outside the window, the long July light sliding across the floorboards, the January frost etching the glass, quietly recording the full length of a silence I had written myself. I remember the afternoon the call came. It was a Tuesday, the Santa Ana winds pushing the smell of dry sage and eucalyptus through the screens. I was sitting at the small round table with a cup of lukewarm café con leche, watching dust drift through a single beam of sunlight, when the phone rang. His name appeared on the caller ID, Elias, and my chest tightened in that familiar way it does when the past knocks without warning. We hadn't spoken since the summer we turned 30, back when we believed life was something you conquered instead of something you endured. I let the machine answer. His voice sounded thinner than I remembered, older, but it still carried that same neighborhood rhythm, that soft blend of Spanish and English that always felt like home. He didn't ask for anything. He said my name, paused for 3 long seconds, and said he'd been thinking about the old orchard where we used to hide. There is something heavy about holding a person's voice in your hand and realizing you are no longer who they are calling for. I stood in the kitchen with my hand hovering over the receiver, frozen by the knowledge that if I picked it up, I would have to account for everything. The years, the absence, why I didn't call when his mother died, why I moved away without leaving a number, how a lifelong friendship became a trail of missed birthdays and unread cards. Answering meant admitting I had changed into someone he might not recognize, a man who chose the safety of routine over the risk of being known. So I let the message end. I told myself I would call him back on Saturday or Sunday, when the air felt lighter, when I found a version of my past I knew how to explain. Years have a way of turning delay into permanence. By the time I finally dialed his number, the line had been disconnected. A mechanical voice informed me the person I was trying to reach could no longer be reached. Later, the cousin told me he had passed away quietly, in a house full of grandchildren I would never meet, in a city I hadn't seen in decades. The regret wasn't sharp. It was slow, like shoreline erosion you don't notice until the land is gone. I realized then I hadn't been avoiding him because of an old wound or unresolved anger. I had been avoiding the mirror he held up to me, the boy I once was, and the man I had become, who forgot exactly where he came from. Tonight, standing alone in the blue light of the kitchen, I finally understood something simple. Some conversations don't end with words. They end with what we choose to carry in the quiet. I touched the plastic casing of the old phone, the red light long dead, and felt an unexpected calm settle in. The unreturned call was no longer a debt. It was part of the structure of my life, as honest and permanent as the lines around my eyes. We live in the space between what we intend to do and what we actually finish. And maybe that space is enough. I didn't need to hear the message again to know what it held. He was only checking to see if the bridge was still there. And even though I never crossed it, I'm grateful it existed, if only for one Tuesday afternoon, humming softly with the sound of a voice that once knew my name.